I mean, you get a lot of nasty looks and people say some nasty things to us, but we're just trying to survive too. But pretty simple. The cops beat my ass in Texas 2 summers ago. I settled a civil action lawsuit through an attorney, Daryl Washington, out of Dallas. Once the deal was settled, the deal was I'd leave the state of Texas.
Negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit. When the city sinks into ice and doors seal shut behind insulated glass, there are still people trying to sleep inside a thin-walled RV parked against the cutting wind. But the cold is not the most dangerous enemy. What's more terrifying is ignorance. One wrong decision when turning on a heater can transform that vehicle into a sealed trap with no escape. Surviving a brutal winter is not a matter of luck. It is a battle of physics, of understanding your own body, and of recognizing invisible threats like carbon monoxide. For homeless individuals living in RVs, staying warm is only half the challenge. They must seal every draft, preserve every small watt of heat, and constantly balance warmth against safety. In this video, we break down real survival strategies from intelligent heat retention to mistakes that can cost lives. If you care about the stories hidden beneath the ice, take a moment to like this video, subscribe so you don't miss deeper analyses, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice can help this story travel further. An aluminum coffin in the ice. When outside temperatures plunge to negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit, an RV is no longer a recreational vehicle. It becomes a fragile shelter against extreme weather. Yet according to building experts, RV structures are not designed to withstand prolonged, deep freeze. Insulation layers are often only 1 to 2 inches thick, and the body is primarily constructed from aluminum and thin composite wood, allowing heat to escape far more quickly than in conventional homes. This turns the interior into what many describe as a metal box, vulnerable to cold air attacking from every direction, especially at night, when temperatures drop the lowest. The very design of the vehicle lays the foundation for a relentless survival battle inside that confined space. Field observations show that the floor is the weakest point. Because the RV is elevated, cold air continuously flows beneath it, pulling heat away through the undercarriage and into the living area. Single-pane windows, door seams, and structural joints become escape routes for precious warmth. In these conditions, even a small draft can significantly reduce interior temperature, pushing occupants closer to hypothermia. To understand how they fight this loss, we must look at the improvised sealing techniques they are forced to invent. Fragile warmth in a sleepless night inside an RV. Trembling in the wind, human breath becomes visible in thin clouds. As temperatures continue to fall, the cold stops being a number on a weather report. It creeps into fingertips and sinks deep into bone. Many describe the sensation as sleeping inside a giant freezer, where blankets only delay but never fully stop the invasion of ice. Each time they wake in the middle of the night, they must move constantly to keep blood circulating. Remaining still for too long allows body heat to drain at a frightening speed. And in those silent hours, loneliness sharpens. Winter has its own soundtrack. Metal contracting in the cold clicks and snaps. Wind slams against the vehicle's walls. Backup batteries emit low power warnings. Together, these sounds form a tense symphony of survival. The fear is not just of the cold itself, but of the heater shutting off unexpectedly. When the heat source dies, Interior temperatures can drop several degrees within minutes. That vulnerability forces them into a state of half sleep, half alertness. Prolonged vigilance erodes the mind quietly but intensely. Yet even in such harsh conditions, people find small ways to preserve a sense of warmth. A quickly brewed cup of coffee, an extra layer pulled over tired shoulders, a tiny yellow light glows in the dark. These seemingly insignificant comforts become anchors of willpower enough to endure until dawn. And it is precisely at that fragile edge between night and morning that the invisible risks begin to surface more clearly. The invisible trap called warmth. In the desperate effort to preserve every fragment of heat, many are forced to turn to alternative sources: portable gas stoves, mobile propane heaters, or even running the vehicle's engine to siphon warmth from the motor. But according to fire departments across multiple states with brutal winters, these emergency fixes often conceal deadly risks. Carbon monoxide, a colorless, odorless gas, can silently accumulate inside the confined space of an RV within minutes of operating a fuel-burning device. In that moment, warmth is no longer salvation. It becomes an invisible trap tightening around life itself. And the most terrifying part is that victims often don't realize they're in danger until it's too late. The early symptoms are deceptively subtle: mild headaches, dizziness, drowsiness, and an unusual wave of fatigue. In a state already defined by sleep deprivation and cold-induced exhaustion, many mistake these signals for normal bodily reactions. But as carbon monoxide levels rise, consciousness begins to blur, reflexes slow, and the ability to escape diminishes almost entirely. Tragic cases have shown that a single careless night can lead to irreversible consequences. Survival, therefore, is not merely about staying warm. It is about staying warm safely. Faced with this threat, those living in RVs must learn to balance temperature and ventilation with delicate precision. A small crack in the door allows air to circulate. Heaters are positioned at careful distances. Every source of warmth is monitored and controlled. This constant calculation leads to a crucial question. If they cannot fully rely on heaters, what other strategies remain to carry them through the long night ahead? The silent layers of defense. When heating devices can no longer be trusted completely, RV dwellers begin constructing quiet but remarkably effective layers of defense. Insulation foam is cut precisely to fit window frames. Heavy blankets are hung along the interior walls. Old rugs are spread across the floor to block the cold air rising from beneath the vehicle. Everyday objects are repurposed with intention, transforming a cramped interior into a temporary thermal chamber. Energy experts note that reducing passive heat loss can preserve several additional degrees Celsius, a difference significant enough to prevent the body from slipping into hypothermia. In extreme conditions, those few degrees mark the boundary between endurance and collapse. Beyond structural adjustments, daily habits also change. Clothing is layered carefully. Heads and feet remain covered, as these are areas where heat escapes most rapidly. Many choose to sleep within the smallest possible space, sometimes even pitching a miniature tent inside the RV to trap body heat more efficiently. These simple yet inventive measures reveal a powerful instinct for adaptation, laying the groundwork for a longer-term survival strategy against the relentless freeze. Biological furnaces and the power of thermal resonance. When devices pose risks and fuel becomes a financial burden, many are forced to return to the most primitive heat source available: their own bodies. Physiologists estimate that a resting adult emits roughly 80 to 100 watts of heat, comparable to a continuously operating incandescent light bulb. Within the confined space of an RV, this is not an insignificant amount if retained effectively. Instead of attempting to warm the entire vehicle, They shrink their survival zone to the sleeping area, using specialized sleeping bags and layered blankets to create a sealed microclimate. Recognizing that body heat is a finite resource, they learn to optimize every unit of energy their bodies produce. Another common strategy is thermal sharing. Couples, friends, even pets become living radiators, pooling warmth to maintain a stable temperature through the night. Some consume high-fat foods before sleep to stimulate metabolism, generating internal heat rather than relying solely on external sources. Yet this approach demands discipline and an understanding of the body's limits. Exhaustion or malnutrition quickly reduces heat production capacity, and when both external and internal sources of warmth begin to fail, they are left confronting a far more difficult question. How does one sustain life when every source of heat is slowly running out? The price of a warm night. When temperatures plunge into dangerous territory and the body can no longer generate enough heat on its own, many are left with no choice but to ignite a propane heater. Within minutes, the frigid metal interior softens into something almost livable. Warmth spreads quickly, restoring feeling to numb fingers and toes. But according to fire safety experts, that comfort comes at a cost. A small propane cylinder typically lasts only a few hours, meaning multiple replacements are required to survive a single long night. For those without a stable income, every tank consumed is a portion of their limited budget burned away. Survival becomes not only a physical challenge, but a financial calculation measured in fuel canisters. The cost extends beyond money. Burning fuel inside a confined space produces significant moisture. By morning, windows and interior walls may be coated in frost, sometimes crystallized into sheets of ice. Over time, accumulated condensation damages interior materials, fosters mold growth, and compromises respiratory health. Ventilation becomes necessary, forcing occupants into a paradox. To stay warm, they must allow cold air back inside. In that fragile trade-off, they understand something essential. Surviving winter is not just about producing heat. It is about maintaining clarity, making precise, disciplined decisions night after night. When survival is more than fighting the cold. After layers of insulation, repeated propane refills, and sleepless nights haunted by the fear of toxic gas, the challenge evolves beyond temperature. It becomes a battle to preserve mental stability through a season that feels endless. Psychological experts note that extreme weather, confined living conditions, and constant vigilance can create stress levels comparable to crisis environments. Inside a small RV where every gust of wind rattling the walls accelerates the heartbeat, tension accumulates day by day. As mental resilience erodes, so too does the capacity to make safe decisions. To counter this, many establish strict routines. They keep their living space organized. They maintain consistent sleep schedules whenever possible. They track fuel and food consumption carefully. Some park near other RV dwellers, forming informal communities where information, technical advice, and warnings are shared. These connections become unofficial safety networks, where experience is treated as the most valuable currency. In such environments, a simple reminder to check carbon monoxide detector batteries can mean the difference between life and tragedy. Through these fragile but vital connections, survival transforms from an isolated struggle into a collective effort to endure the harshest months of the year. The line between endurance and collapse. As winter stretches from week to week, the true test is no longer a single night. It is cumulative endurance. The cold does not merely drain body heat, it erodes willpower over time. Medical experts warn that hypothermia does not always arrive dramatically. It often begins subtly. Light shivering, brief confusion, slowed reflexes. Within the confined space of an RV, where individuals must monitor their own condition, Recognizing early warning signs becomes critical. A single delayed response can erase the opportunity to recover, quietly, almost invisibly. Beyond physical risk lies psychological exhaustion. Sleep deprivation from constant temperature checks, anxiety over fuel supply, and fear of equipment failure in the middle of the night create sustained stress. Fatigue dulls judgment, increasing the likelihood of unsafe choices, running heaters too long, sealing ventilation too tightly, pushing limits just a little further. Winter survival inside an RV is not simply resistance against low temperatures. It is the preservation of awareness under prolonged strain. And as the line between endurance and collapse grows thinner, the question shifts. It is no longer about how to get warmer. It becomes about how to survive an entire season without breaking, physically, financially, or mentally. Dawn and the equation of tomorrow. When the first light slips through frost-covered glass, it is more than the beginning of a new day. It is proof that they have survived another night. In conditions where temperatures can plunge without warning, each morning carries the quiet weight of victory. Yet sociologists emphasize that winter survival cannot be measured night by night. The greater challenge lies in sustaining resources, fuel, food, backup batteries, and physical health. And as those reserves diminish, the pressure of tomorrow becomes more visible than ever. Daytime becomes a strategic territory. They search for parking spots touched by direct sunlight, harnessing whatever natural warmth they can. They recharge devices when the opportunity arises. They inspect every detail inside the vehicle door seals, propane levels, and carbon monoxide detector batteries. Each small action is preventative, because a mistake today may demand payment tonight. For some, the next calculation involves migration arriving toward warmer regions. But relocation requires fuel, planning, and sacrifice. The cost is never insignificant. The story, therefore, extends beyond resisting the cold. It evolves into a long-term equation of endurance and choice. And with winter far from over, they understand that the coming trials are not defined solely by temperature, but by their ability to continue believing in a way forward. The final anchor. After weeks of battling ice and uncertainty, what RV dwellers need is not merely another blanket or propane cylinder, but something steadier, an anchor. Reports from community support organizations reveal that turning points often begin with small gestures. The address of a public warming center, a hot meal, a flyer listing emergency shelter information. In moments that feel directionless, these fragments of guidance form a map. Knowing where to go can shift despair into agency. Volunteer groups bring more than food and blankets. They carry networks, information about supply distributions, incoming weather warnings, and safe survival practices. For many, it is the first time in months they feel not entirely alone in winter's grip. Being heard, being advised, and being acknowledged restores fragments of resilience worn down by endless nights. Yet assistance only gains meaning when it becomes a launching point. As communal warmth flickers back to life, a deeper question emerges. How can temporary relief transform into lasting change? Surviving winter does not mean hardship disappears overnight. But when someone knows there is a place to turn, when someone else is willing to point the way, the road ahead no longer feels completely obscured. A small slip of paper with an address, a bowl of hot food on a freezing night, a quiet voice saying, "You don't have to face this alone." Hope does not always arrive as a miracle. Sometimes it arrives as direction, and direction becomes a plan. A plan becomes movement, and movement becomes a second beginning. The story of surviving winter inside an RV is not only about cold. It is about endurance, about kindness, and about the possibility of starting again. Winter will pass. Ice will melt. What remains is the belief that even after standing at the thinnest edge of collapse, a person can rise once more. May those facing the freezing nights find safe shelter, steady hands to lift them, and a path they can call their own. Amen.